Okay, well, hey, here we are. We're talking family compounds, and you guys did it. And we were along for the ride, and what a ride it was. So
Yes.
we'll get into the escrow process, which was challenging. But before that, what made you guys want to pursue a family compound? Like, what was it going on? What was the dynamic?
Well, I feel for me, it might be different for Richard, but maybe similar, that it was more of just particularly what was going on within the family. I mean, we'd been talking about it for years, but then with an elderly father and the things that they were needing and then the decisions he was making with his life and finances, it was just best to like, okay, let's bring him closer to us.
'Cause he was in the valley, yeah?
And he was in the valley.
You guys were all here, scattered around a little bit, but
Yeah. Got around a little bit. And then all of a sudden, we had a new addition to the family on the younger side.
Mm-hmm.
So a grandbaby was becoming born. And for me, I just really wanted to live that legacy. And I know that was part of my dad's hopes and dreams as well, is just to be able to live that legacy, leave that legacy, and let that legacy live on. So once Coulter was born, we're like, let's do this. And
Yeah.
everybody was on board.
Were you, Richard, on board from the beginning, or
Yeah.
did it take some convincing?
No, I think it was partly I started the snowball, I guess you would say.
You're guilty.
Yeah, for me, it was a thing of, we're all paying this money in rent. Why can't we put our money together and get something that we can afford and, do? And a lot of people I went to high school with, they have family down or hand-me-down generations, and it's like properties. And I'm like, why can't my son have this? Why can't future Howards have this? Like, we can make it happen now to set up our family forever.
That's a big thought, like what's going to happen generations down the road.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, you did it.
They did do it.
They did do it. What was going through your mind in terms of, and with a lot of different family members involved, like what was most important to you when we were looking for homes? Like we looked at a few of them, and so some of them felt like, maybe could be. Others were like a definite no. But what was most important for you guys when considering a compound like that?
Go for it.
And did you agree?
Yeah. No, obviously there was a couple I loved, they would hate, they loved, I would hate. And when we bounced back and forth, and it's funny because the property we actually ended up buying, we were like on the fence of just saying, nah, let's not even look at it because the pictures are so horrible on the listing. And once we got there and we started realizing what they did and how they made it work for them, it just kind of filled in our shoes just right into place.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and one of the things I think I remember was obviously needed a lot of, you wanted a lot of space in terms of acreage, but then you also needed space to put everybody, because you're talking about potentially, at one point, the entire family was going to be there, right? But then not everyone, so you're living there.
Yes.
Now.
I'm there.
You're living there now.
Yep.
Brady's living there now.
And the grandparents.
Grandparents moving there now.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
That's pretty awesome.
So you needed a lot of space.
Yeah.
So this one was cool because they had the unfinished barn.
Yes.
That remains unfinished. We'll get to that. There's a modular.
Yes.
On a 433A.
Which means you can land on it.
A permanent foundation. But that even we needed to get inspected by how we went out there and took a look at it. That was a bit of a fiasco. And then there was another structure with like a barn on the bottom and then a unit up top.
Yes.
Right. So there were those kind of 3 living areas. And then how many acres?
10 acres.
10 acres.
Yep.
Dude, that's awesome.
I know.
Paintball course.
Yeah.
You name it.
Gun range.
Yeah.
Gun range, whatever.
Dirt track.
Yeah.
Yeah. So fun.
Yeah. So, so let's talk like a little bit more depth through initial, when we got out there the first time, because initially it was like, let's not even bother. The pictures looked awful. But then you get out there, and was it like an immediate, this would work, or did it take a few trips?
Yeah. I actually was questioning it. And then my wife had said, you know what, let's go for it. It meets all our needs. We have an additional income with the barn studio. And then the unfinished barn lit me up because all I see is equity in it.
Mm-hmm.
Once that's finished, the equity is going to be huge because now we're going from a single family dwelling to a multifamily. Just changing that alone is, I feel like, is going to help us out quite a bit.
It's going to be super cool.
Yeah.
And when I was, it's pretty hilly, but you get the great views. We have
Yes.
amazing views. Obviously, I would love flat land, but there's a lot of usable spots on it.
Well, and even outside of because the barn, the unfinished barn that you're talking about, like this barn dominium kind of a thing. Did you ever go out there?
I remember another.
Oh, that's great. So you, outside of that, there was a flat space where there was a camper, right? That they had. Does
Yes.
that have the hookups and everything too, or no?
Yeah, full RV hookups up there.
So I mean, that's a whole for you guys or renting. I mean, there's just there was a lot of options.
Yeah, speaking of the RV hookups, it helped out a lot because Alexis's mom is in Arizona. While we were having the baby, she stayed for a few months and was able to stay in our RV
Dude, that's so cool.
and help us out. And she had all the amenities she needed and was right there.
Wow.
And then I got to stay there in the unexpected when it comes to construction, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, later in this podcast.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember our first time we went out and looked at properties. Maybe it was our second, but we went to this one property and it was like so bad that like cats had like, peed on the floor so much that the floorboards like caving in. Again. It's like you guys didn't get discouraged, right?
No.
You kept on pressing forward.
That
like,
was location.
Yeah.
On that one.
Yeah, it was a great location. But yeah, like, it's like you kept on pushing forward and pursuing, and you had your vision big enough to overcome, seeing some properties that weren't the right fit, but kept on looking.
Yep. Absolutely.
It's cool.
Well, and you're handy too. You're an electrician, so there was that element as well. Or even in the rest of the family, you could do a lot of the work yourself, which is great.
So I remember this escrow being a trickier escrow. We had lots of talks about it, Travis, and working things out with. I think specifically it was the 433A that fixed.
It started off that, or maybe ended that. But here's what I remember, and then you guys tell me what you remember, because maybe I tried to block it out or something like that.
I think I did.
Some wall. There was some wall.
There was a wall. The wall. Okay, the wall was what I remember as being in the end this could make it or break it. Kind of a thing because of I think how the appraiser wrote it up.
Yes.
And so they had basically put in a wall down the middle-ish of the manufactured home, separating it into two spaces, right?
Right.
Yes.
And that had to eventually come down, and then the stove get removed so that it was one living space.
Yes.
And that.
Yeah,
And there was a door too, a side door from like a little hallway into the other side of the unit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
to
like
be sealed to as
to
well.
explain the setup for the listeners, it's a 2,900 square foot modular, and they had it split into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and then a 1.5 bedroom, 1 bath, and they put a wall right in the kitchen that divides the two quote unquote units, and there was a lot of tricky things to get around that. So
Yeah, and that was because that was from the lending perspective and financing that.
right, and from the lending perspective, they hear remove a wall, then they think, well, maybe that's like a structural wall. Maybe that wasn't added
Right, I
after
remember
the
this.
fact.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it kind of just kept barreling. And
So we had to get like
barreling.
an engineer cert and all this.
Yeah. And I think that the foundation ended up being okay,
Yep.
but the 433A part, but it took some investigating to identify what we needed to identify to make sure that was, because that would have been a deal breaker too.
Now I remember why I had Travis work on this one.
Yeah. Meet the Howards. It'll be fun, he said.
It's going to be easy. Piece of
Yeah. Yeah. So it was, my memory, and this was, how long is it? You guys probably know to the day, 10, 11
June 9th
months?
or something like that. We closed
Okay.
escrow.
So almost a year ago. So my memory is a little bit hazy, but I remember it being, we knew from the beginning there was going to be some hurdles, but then up until the very end, we weren't sure.
yes.
Yeah,
It
we were
was
not
the
even
very
sure.
end.
There were
Yeah.
so many times we were thinking about just jumping off.
It was like hours before the end.
Well, and part of it was, it's never just the work that needs to happen or the way that the structure is. You're dealing with a whole other set of people in the sellers, and and they can be difficult. And, you know, sometimes it's like husband and wife don't agree on the thing. And then that kind of bleeds into like, okay, then what does that mean for us? And there was a little bit of that too. And so it was like, okay, then who's going to do the work and how do we make sure it gets done and certify it? And then, you know, send the appraiser back out and take the photos and all this kind of stuff. So it was initially, I think we thought that the unfinished barn would have been the biggest hurdle, and it ended up not being really much of an issue.
No one cared about that.
No one cared.
No,
Not even a problem.
It wasn't even included
It was
in the appraisal.
this dang manufactured home,
Yep.
right?
The barn was left at 25% incomplete, so no added value.
Which is great for you.
But that was also a thing that I think made our escrow go south, is because they had, I would assume, dumped somewhere around 150 grand into the barn to get it where it's at. It's just, you know, it's all framed in. It's all windows, doors, everything, foundation. And as soon as they heard, you know, no added value in it appraised for what we had purchased it for, they really started going sour on us. And, you know, all these corrections that we had, they just, nope, not doing it. I want to bail out now. But we were under contract.
Yeah.
So you ended up doing the work or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a tough decision, you know. I mean, we've been in this position before where, you know, because the sellers don't have an obligation to do really anything in terms of requests for repairs, but then it puts it back on the buyers to say, okay, well, is it worth it still to move forward, and at what cost? And then that's where like you have to
finagled
negotiate.
it because I mean, if they didn't want to close with these guys, the sellers, 'cause like we could get more, then letting you come in and remove the wall, like that was some finagling.
There was a lot of finagling.
A lot of
Especially because they had renters in at the time. So they removed a wall that opened up to one unit, and you have renters on one side and you have you on the other side.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It ended up working out, and I mean, I know it's not been an easy road, and we'll talk about that, but because I think with any home, it's like, you know, you go through all of your investigations and you get as much information as you can, and just inevitably there's stuff that comes up after you live in it.
Yeah.
But it worked out, but there was a lot of negotiating, a lot of like tension
Yes.
and
Holding your breath.
holding your breath and waiting, a lot of prayers.
Yes.
But ultimately it's like, and I think we all kind of, thank God not all of us lost it at the same time, but I think we all had moments where we all lost it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I screamed into a pillow a few times, but like pretty brutal.
Don't hit the pillow trap.
No, but we all kind of kept calm.
So
yeah.
how did you guys like end up, you know, taking title since there's so many people on the property?
Yeah. So we went a 33 split between me, my mom, and my aunt. And yeah, we just did it that way.
Third to third to third.
Was that like a kind of, you knew that was where it was going to end up all along, or was that some discussion in that? Because that
Yeah. So
seems fair, but
to get our income there, it took us three combined. I couldn't do it without them two. They couldn't do it without me, or vice versa, whatever route you take. And yeah, we just decided that us three will be the owners and we'll just manage it.
You know, as long as you all get along, that is so wise, because it's like having a
Or you
piece
have
of
enough grace.
having enough
One or
grace.
the
Yeah, having a piece of the pie is better than having no pie at all.
Exactly.
Right? So you each have a piece.
Yeah.
You know,
I
a
mean,
pretty big piece.
like I said, we were
A healthy serving.
all spending over $2,000 a month in rent. So now we're spending it towards a mortgage that's going to help us out.
It's cool. It's really cool.
yeah. So what did you know needed to be done when we closed escrow? I remember when the day we gave you guys keys was pretty exciting, and honestly a day I didn't know would ever come, but you had already gotten there early, and you took your four-wheeler, like you were already bombing, exploring and everything. But I mean, that hill, like just to try to picture it, there's like the modular home, and then the barn and studio kind of on a lower level, and then up above there's the barn, and then above that there's like another flat space, and then the hill kind of goes up, and that's where most of the acreage is. It's gorgeous. I mean, the views are crazy, but so a lot of opportunity. But what did you know you had to do work wise when we closed?
Yeah. So the main goal when we closed, we were on a super hard time crunch because the grandparents had to be out of their lease by the end of the month. We had some mold issues to deal with on their side. We had shower issues to deal with because my grandma was in a wheelchair at the time. She couldn't get in there. So what we ended up doing is we went and we just blasted a full remodel in less than 3 weeks.
Whoa.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, there wasn't a time I didn't leave until 10 o'clock. So, and I was just helping the crew because we had to hire a crew on top of it, which was also a family member. So that helped out a lot.
That's
And
cool.
LeeAnn, were you living there as well?
Not during that time. I didn't move in till that complete renovation on that side was done.
Okay.
I
That's not true.
transitioned.
You were staying in the trailer.
Well, I did. stay
Oh,
in the
you were in the
for a
trailer, yeah,
part-time. There was a transition. I was at
Yeah.
some friend's house and then into the trailer. Yeah. But I think too the
We all
phase-
lived in the trailer for at some point.
I know we did.
So it's your turn.
In the
It's your
middle
turn.
of summer, coming from Los Osos.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's right.
That's two turno.
Yeah.
So you knew, okay, so you knew that the manufactured home was like project one.
Yes.
And it,
Priority.
3 weeks, that was it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
That is
fast. 2
fast.
bathroom remodels,
Yeah.
full paint. We pretty much did everything but floors and cabinets. I mean, it was
Yeah, we really prioritized each other's like timelines of events. I was flexible because I had place to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Richard and Alexis needed a spot quickly because their lease was up and they needed to get in. So they got in first. So we prioritized them getting in first and then putting off grandpa's as much as we could till theirs was completely ready because that was the most renovation that needed to happen.
yeah. So on the 1 bedroom, 1 bath, I'll call it. We finished that one first.
Yeah.
Then we put up the dividing wall back up that we had to take down to get through escrow, and then we started going to town on that side. And then once we got that going, then the grandparents were able to come in, and she was able to come in.
Yeah.
And well, we did it.
That's cool.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what happened? What was the next big project?
The next big project was getting it in shape. I think I ended up doing around 12 dump runs on what the old owners had left us.
Yeah.
And I'm not done. So
Yeah.
That's so tough.
yeah.
That's so tough.
Yeah, but
And they did a lot of cleanup.
it was one of those things like me and,
Yeah, it was a mess, right?
me and Travis talked and we said, well, do you want to wait? Because this can push it back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, just get them off.
I'm proud of you guys because there's times where, you know, on principle, you want to just, you know what I mean? But it's like having, like you said in the very beginning, this big picture of like, no, this is like a generational property.
Yes.
And this is annoying and it's not fair. And all those things are true. And we're still going to like move forward because in the end, it'll be worth it. And hopefully it is. But
What's the weirdest thing you pulled off the property?
oh, Jeff loves these kinds of questions.
Oh my goodness.
Do you,
Or made them pull off.
do you remember
property?
wasn't there a statue of Mary on the hill?
Yes,
They're like
and the
upside down crosses.
cross.
Yeah, and I just found some crosses. I mean, I hope it's pets. I'm going to go with that, but it might be grandpa. We don't know.
Just don't dig there.
Don't dig there.
I think the weirdest thing for my wife, she was up cleaning where they had a trailer parked, and there was a lot of drug,
Yeah, paraphernalia.
yeah.
That was a
And,
bummer.
yeah, and it was pretty crazy, and I started putting the pieces together. So there used to be a modular there
Oh yeah.
up top where the trailers are. So it was a multifamily house, but in order for them to get the permits to the barn, they had to get rid of the modular. That modular so happened to burn down at the same time.
Oh, what are the odds?
I'm not sure.
That's crazy.
So that was a huge.
How do we get rid of this?
Whoa. Yeah.
Match. So okay, so you have the manufactured home. That's priority one. You get that done, and you know that there's a lot of which you're still working on dump run stuff. So none of that's a surprise so far.
No.
The unfinished barn.
Yeah.
That's been a little bit of a surprise.
Yes, that's been quite a.
Because the idea was for you and Alexis to move up there, right?
Correct.
And that would be home base for you guys.
Yeah,
And
that'll be it.
and so we're 10 months in, and you're still working on it. And what did you not know that you had to kind of like undo?
Yeah. So once we started looking into it and kind of really getting in there, and I got one of my good friends out there, we started pulling some shear walls, and we started noticing like they had walls up that weren't even nailed. They were just there. I don't know how they were staying up. I'm guessing from the shear. And so
Whoa.
when he saw that, it was, let's take this completely apart and let's get it going. And they also, that house is a kit house, and they let it sit for a very long time. So a lot of beams were twisting and turning. So it's been nothing but trying to get it back to square one.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's hard to undo.
Yeah. So it was 12 steps back to get to where we are, but I'm finally moving forward in the process. So.
And you're smiling when you're talking about it, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Well,
been a long days, but
smile or cry.
yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's going to be an amazing spot, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a beautiful home once it's done. So.
Yeah.
And we're getting there. So my goal, my little joke I make is I want it to be like North Korea, where it's done on the outside and nothing on the inside.
North Korea. That's incredible. Classic. And then there's just been some, like you're talking about Brady's place, like there's just been a little bit of, some plumbing issues, which for an electrician, he was saying he'd hope that you'd have electrical issues, but it's been plumbing. And so that comes up all the time. Talk to Jeff about plumbing with mold and stuff like that, right? He's got plumbing stuff.
Well, we sell houses, and you're like, oh, they never connected the sewer line. Like the toilet's just, or like usually it's the shower. The shower's just pouring down into the subfloor. Like
that's fun.
Nasty.
Yeah.
Nasty.
Yeah.
So, I mean, did you guys feel like you bit off more than you wanted to chew, or has it been all right? Like, what's the takeaway?
You still talk to each other?
Are you friends?
We definitely butt heads, but yeah, we're friends. and we did know coming into this that it's going to be challenging, especially with the current situation. I mean, we share a patio into our houses. There's been a lot of fights, a lot of stuff, but nothing that's separated us. So
It's cool.
we're able to keep going. And I mean, we probably fight the most out of everybody.
Well, I mean,
And we're the
to be
closest.
expected. Yeah.
We're the closest, and we fight
Mother,
the
son. Exactly.
But, and it's been hard because we lived on 80 acres before. We had no neighbors. So I had a dog, and then we have a newborn coming into it. And the dog moves into what is essentially a duplex. And they hear outside noises and barking with a newborn. So it's been a challenge in that aspect.
How do you guys navigate privacy and those kinds of things within the family compound? Like, do you talk? I mean, I imagine there's a lot of great things about a family compound, and you obviously do it because you want to be close to each other, but I mean, also need some space. So how do you guys navigate all that?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I just, it's hard, especially when a grandbaby's just been born.
Give me that baby.
But I just think about myself and the kind of privacy I want. So I just want to put that privacy back, give that back. But just knowing each other, like I know Alexis, really well. And I just honor that, Sometimes, I'll call before going over.
Showing
sometimes,
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I just wait for an invite. She had to put a note up on the window, but door, not necessarily for me, but for
No, that was another struggle is we had people come over to fix things, and some reason our door is the most attractive.
Oh.
And so instead of knocking on their door where they're supposed to go, they're knocking on our door. And so then our dog goes off, then the baby wakes up, and it's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
But and I mean, the biggest thing to think about when buying a compound like that is just think about where you lived before and the privacy you had. Just keep that same mentality and it'll work out.
Yeah.
So
That's smart.
yeah, I
Be
mean,
flexible.
and it's nice. Like the positive side of it, if our door's open, come on in. You see the family, like,
Oh, I like this.
perfect.
Yeah.
Have you guys grown closer?
I wouldn't say closer. We've always been really close.
Yeah.
So, it's hard to grow even closer.
Right.
I think if anything, we fought more than we ever have.
Really?
And but we're getting through it. And like I said, it's never been anything that
I love the
I'm
honesty,
moving out.
man. I love that honesty.
It's got to be hard.
Well, yeah, and it's more around making sure, because there is 3 of us involved in the investment, that all 3 of us are in the loop.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's been the biggest.
That's been really hard, especially with like
obstacle.
small things you don't think about, the phone calls. I'll call Renee and say, hey, about this, and then call her and be like, oh, why didn't I hear about it? And then we're bouncing back and forth.
How's it been with Renee not, because was she supposed to be living there as well? Or no. Okay. So so then how's that, I mean, it's one thing when you're there, but how's it been with her being more remote? Like,
yeah, it's been fine. She's, like I said, she's a 33 split. So what we do is with the rental income we do receive, us 3 owners split it down the middle, all in thirds.
Yeah.
And that's what we pay.
Cool.
Yeah. And
Clean.
so it's more of an investment property, I would say, for Renee. But eventually she will end up living on the property
Yeah.
when she retires or whatever.
And so when you guys finish the barn up top, You move into that, and then you'll have another space open. So what's the plan long term for that? Is that maybe Renee or another or renter?
Yeah, we're all over the place.
Yeah, we're all over the place. With that.
There's times when we're like, all right, let's just separate everyone, and then we'll move my mom over there, or my grandpa over there, and then she'll stay there, or let's rent it out because money's tight.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do this, and then so we're kind of just bouncing with it. We're seeing where the market goes. We want to refinance, and then we might not even have to consider renting it out.
Yeah,
that'd be sweet. How's Grandpa doing?
Yeah,
He's a champ. He's awesome. I think that's more of his challenge than mine. Well, no, that's not true.
Yeah.
Because I live in the same environment, so it's like, oh man, felt like I just got
He's
a
doing
husband.
Yeah.
Cooking, cleaning after a grown man. But no, it's good. He's such a handyman, so that's just a plus. He is a goer. He doesn't like to sit still.
how old is he?
80. Well, he'll be 80 this year.
Gosh,
Yeah.
He's out
Stud.
there building cement benches and
That's awesome.
weed eating and planting trees.
Yeah, he doesn't stop even when I tell him to. So
Please stop cutting that tree down. I guess
yeah, the tree.
before we go into more personal questions and stuff, I would love to hear like what's been the lesson. I think I'm hearing a little bit like it's harder than we expected on relationship. I think it's tough.
Yep.
But what maybe some of the positives and negatives and what some of the lessons you've kind of learned besides just the privacy thing.
yeah. What would you tell other people looking to do the same thing?
Like go for it. Think about it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, communicate a lot. I think that's the number one thing, is that just communicate and honestly communicate and be willing to receive hard information, about situations. And I think also have an open-minded and know that you're going to have to compromise sometimes. But I think the most positive thing is it has brought us together more as in a family unit, and just being able to see the vision of going forward and moving forward, and just the excitement, the joy it brings just to have that place and to be able to fill it, and then fill it beyond just us. I think for me, I'm just a big, let's invite everybody.
Yeah.
And I love to be able to have a place where people can come and.
yeah, like the holidays have been great. Being able to host and have everyone in one spot.
That's special.
Yeah, and bring outsiders, come on in, and, But yeah, I think it's the communication's huge. Have those awkward conversations you don't want to have, because normally you wouldn't have them. You're not by each other every day, but when you are, just be upfront about it. But I would say it's definitely rewarding. It's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
Because it's opportunity that none of us would have ever had.
That's cool.
Especially here.
Yeah, exactly. Especially here. The thing I really appreciated, you guys were great. I mean, with so many people involved. I mean, if it wasn't for just the place itself and the challenges that it brought on and some of the stuff with the sellers, like it would have been just so smooth. But the thing I loved, and that you guys, I think, did so well, maybe without even trying, was just this deferring to one another. Like we would have these text chains going, and the communication was so good. Like you'd talk offline and then you come back with like an answer. And I don't feel like you were ever really in disagreement much. It felt like you deferred to one another, and like that just seemed like 33% split across the board too. Yeah. So maybe that's another thing, is like even before you start looking at properties or get into escrow, decide like, because the title and ownership is one thing, but like, how do you make decisions about what's going to happen in escrow? Because there's going to be a lot of them. I would say that was one thing I was really impressed with that you guys did well.
Yeah, I think what helped us a lot too is they both trust my judgment and what I wanted and what I wanted to see and what we needed. So they would lean on me, I would lean on them, and then we'd just kind of bounce it back and forth. And at the end of the day, I'd make the final decision, and that's what we stuck with.
Yeah, me and Renee agreed prior to that this is something Richard's going to make decisions for, because we're going to be gone before he's gone, right? And so we want it to be how he wants it. Yeah. But I think for me, the funnest thing too about this is it's like a project, right? And when you do a project as a family, it brings you together closer, and just being able to tear down a wall together and pull siding off of the barn.
Yeah, and for people who've never been on property, just know you're going to work on it constantly.
Yeah. And then it's not for somebody who wants it ready, right?
Yes.
And just the pristine place. And it's a constant work.
Well, I think about my kids and your son growing up on a place like that.
Yeah.
And that's just super
That's sweet.
exciting, right?
So cool.
Yeah.
And, I look at it too as with the 30-year mortgage, it'll be paid off by the time he takes it over, and he'll have 3 houses of income to live off of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
Pretty cool.
yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And maybe his brothers or sisters. I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's going to the firstborn.
Okay. Decision made.
No, yeah. Well, I have a lot of friends that, have huge properties and they end up getting sold when the grandparents die. And that's why traditionally you look and they always gave it to the firstborn.
Yeah.
And then whatever, they can stay there, they can do whatever, but
Trusts and wills, people.
Yeah, exactly.
Trusts and wills.
On the next episode.
The next episode.
yeah, because if you don't do that, then they'll never have this opportunity again,
Right.
Yeah.
especially solo.
Yeah. Gosh, it's hard enough now, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
All right. Well, that's good advice, I think, huh?
It's good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Should we ask every guest these same 4 questions, and now we get like double
Double dose.
Cool.
dose of it. So, why don't you start off, Guapo?
Okay. What's either of yours favorite movie, book, or TV show? You both get to go.
Yeah.
Or podcast or
Mercy. No, I saw these questions too.
I just work, so I don't really
Do you listen to what do you listen to on the
just
on the job?
just music
music.
Okay.
or my own thoughts.
That's
counts.
scary, actually.
That counts.
Absolutely.
Well, I like books. I'm a book freak. I have more books that I haven't read than I've read, but my favorite are those that are historical, but with that nonfiction twist. So it's
cool.
like fun to hear it in a different setting. So that's kind of the stuff I like.
Kind of stuff like awesome.
Nice. Okay. Question number 2. Who's the most influential person in your life?
I would say my grandfather on my mom's side, Grandpa Willie, would be my most influential. I watched him take care of 6 children and like 20 of us grandkids and have us all there. And I think that's what influences my desire and joy for having all the family there when we can.
That's cool.
Yeah, and he's a godly man. He's a prophet and a evangelist. So
Yeah.
Cool,
Love it.
dude.
Richard?
Yeah, that's a hard question. I have so many people that I look up to, but I think for purposes, I'm going to pick my son because being a new father, it's something I can't explain, right? Like you look at it and you're like, cool, I got this blank slate and this perfect human. And yeah, it's just cool to look at him and see him progress. And, as we're going, we're only 4 months into it. And just been blown away.
and
That's
kids
awesome.
definitely influenced you. I gave
get you family.
everything I had to him.
Family
right.
compound.
Yeah.
awesome.
So yeah, that's my answer.
I love it. It's a good one.
Okay, your most ideal, perfect day on the Central Coast. We always love to entwine some food talk here. So tell us.
Yes. I think mine is wine tasting on the coast at like Hearst Castle. That area, just being on the cliff and enjoying some good wine and good food. Anywhere on the coastline, just enjoying a good restaurant.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Richard?
I'm really into off-roading, so I think if I could get out in nature and tear it up, I guess.
That's so
Where do you go?
Everywhere, not much on the Central Coast. I mean, there is Oceano Dunes, but it's pretty small. So I like to go to like Glamis or Dumont, which is pretty far. But
Yeah.
cool.
if I'm with my family, it's cool.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Well, guys, thanks so much for being on Guiding You Home. We
Yeah.
appreciate your time.
There was a 4th question, but it's not really one. We asked people how to get in touch with
Well,
you, but mostly
We don't want
that.
LeeAnn to get a bunch of phone calls from
No,
guys.
no. Unless you want to, just throw it out there. But
Yeah, I guess I'll shout out my new business.
Yeah, shout out
You
your
guys
business,
know,
yeah.
Electrician. I just opened up a company. It's Lighthouse Electrical Services, and if you need to get a hold of me, I will let you talk to Travis.
Awesome.
Yeah, just DM us or something. Give us a message.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Cool. That's great.
Awesome. Thank you guys
Thank
so
you guys
much.
so
yeah,
much.
No, it's been
Appreciate
fun.
being here.
Awesome.
So-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.